preparing to live stream the webinar. Setting up your webinar for YouTube Live. So let's see how this technology works. If it does, it'll make it so much cleaner and easier.
Nice.
All right. So welcome. I can hear it. There's a delay. Okay, so cool. Welcome to the Money Lab live. I keep hearing myself. This is so funny. I'm gonna close that. All right, friends and family over at YouTube land. This is the Money Lab. Once again, we're gonna start off here on YouTube Lab. Introducing here with my guest, Laurie Chin Sayres. Introduce yourself, Laurie.
Hi, I'm Laurie Chin Sayres, and I am a filmmaker here in Colorado.
Filmmaker. So she's going to be on our show today talking about her money story and talk about her journey as an entrepreneur. And as usual, once the top of the hour hits, we're going to do quiet on the set so we can launch it on the Spreaker app and make sure everybody can connect with us that way. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to set it up. Oh, here it goes. We got to pop out this chat here. So just in case anybody on YouTube wants to chat, ask questions or anything like that, there is a window so we can see you do that. So just letting you know that that's what we're all about. So anyway, how is the weather over there in Colorado?
It's Colorado sun, sunny and warm. So very excited. I'm from the East Coast and they're getting their fourth storm. So I'm very grateful to be here in the sun. Are? Yeah, fourth storm in like the last 2 weeks. So.
I actually am supposed to go to the East Coast in a couple of weeks. So any like suggestions to make sure that
By then you should be fine. I think hopefully this is the last one for them. I feel bad for my family. Buried in there was snow. So hopefully this will be the last one and you'll be fine in a couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. Okay, quiet on the set. We're going to go ahead and fire it up on the Spreaker side and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Let's see here. Go here. Go live. And all right, welcome to the Money Lab Live Podcast, episode number 55, the Avoid Money at All Costs story. All right. So welcome back to another live broadcast of the Money Lab podcast from the Six Figure Academy. I am your host, Wei Hong from the Six Figure Academy. Now, this is the podcast where we give you tips, strategies, and interviews with other entrepreneurs on how to create the ultimate six-figure entrepreneurial lifestyle, free of bad money stories, money anxiety, and stress so that you can monetize your dreams and execute your genius. Now, if you haven't already downloaded our free book From Money Anxiety to Six-Figure Mastery, make sure you go to go.thesixfigureacademy.com and get it there. It's the perfect complement for all the things we discuss on the show. And quite frankly, it could change your life. Now, if you're joining us live today and you're not on YouTube Live, which is where Laurie and I are right now, make sure you get on Spreaker.com or download the Spreaker app, which is the best way to do it, on your mobile device and search for the hashtag the Money Lab so that you can join us in the chat room and ask questions, interact with us and Laurie, or even request a specific topic to discuss that will help support you in your quest for the ideal six-figure lifestyle. And what we're talking about here is more than just money. We're talking about lifestyle of happiness, wealth, and all that good stuff. And Laurie's going to share a little bit about how she manages and juggles all that. Now, while you're there, subscribe so that you don't miss an episode and you can catch us every single week with a new guest. For all other ways to find us, go to thesixfigureacademy.com/radio for all the details. And if there's something you love about what you hear on this episode today that you know could help someone you care about, remember, sharing is caring, and that's what we're all about here. Share the show to that person, okay? So today we have a Laurie Chin Sayres, and what I want to do real quick is kind of like give you guys an idea of who we actually have on the show, because it's some really cool journey that she's been through as an entrepreneur, becoming more of an entrepreneur. And her money story is a fascinating one that a lot of you could probably resonate with. I mean, her lifelong goal has always been to activate the empathy with the use of visual images. Okay, activate empathy. So over the last 20 plus years, she has done this as a filmmaker, as a college professor, as a media literacy education consultant. I can't wait for her to explain what that's all about. And then now, back to entrepreneurial filmmaking. Okay. Not just filmmaking, but filmmaking from an entrepreneurial standpoint, which I'm really excited about. Now, originally she's from Massachusetts. Now she's in Colorado, but she was in California for a little bit and then now in Colorado. And she calls Colorado home, where she lives with her husband and her yellow Labrador, who's one of the Labrador's best friend is a husky. So maybe one of these days, Kayla can actually have a play date with the lab. Now, she spends her time training, get this, for Olympic distance triathlons and advocating for animals. So welcome to the show, Laurie. So happy you are able to make it today.
I'm super excited to be here. Honored to be asked. Thank you, Wei.
Yeah, it's an honor for me to have you on here because I'm so excited for you to share everything that you do for a living. But most importantly, let's start off with something because you're not full Chinese, right?
No, I'm half Chinese. My dad's family is from China.
From China? Okay, mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was gonna say when I first saw your name, I was like Laurie Chin, but then wait a minute, there's a little bit of mixture in there, right?
Yes, absolutely. Multiracial. I was excited when they added the box to multiracial on forms. So
nice.
That was a good day.
Me.
Yeah. It's like I found somewhere.
They should just call it blended.
Yeah.
Put a little blender in there. So.
That would work.
So do you think that you inherited some of the the generational money anxiety that comes with the Chinese culture at all? Did you inherit any of that, or do you think it was just kind of like whatever you grew up with?
I think I've been thinking about that a lot lately, Wei. Actually, I saw the movie Coco. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started. It was a surprisingly good movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I went in not knowing what to expect. And so I think, exploring that and having such a strong visual representation of the connection of ancestries, it really got me thinking. Sometimes I don't think about my ancestors past my immediate family or grandparents. And so I started to think about that. And, I think my family is blended from Chinese culture. And although there are other ethnicities on my mom's side, I think it's really very pure American working class. Mm-hmm. And so I think in some ways they share some of the money anxieties, some very different. And I think from the Chinese side, I definitely got a desire for money and prosperity.
Right. Okay, cool.
And I think also kind of got handcuffed, if you will, kind of the fears of anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
There are 4 granddaughters in my family and no grandsons.
Wow.
So my grandparents, I know they loved us all equally, but I think that that Chinese culture of the oldest or the firstborn certainly has come into my favor sometimes. So maybe my other, my cousins and my sister might say differently, but I think I definitely benefited.
There is definitely a difference because I am a firstborn of this generation. I carry the family name for our generation, this generation. so of our family name and for the Hong family. And there's a significantly different set of expectation, and not just from a prosperity standpoint, but also from a behavioral standpoint,
Absolutely. So I think I always understood that my family had big expectations for me, whether that mean prosperity financially or to follow my dreams or to achieve in whatever field that I chose. So I think I always had this desire and this feeling that I could do this, but then also at the same time, other anxieties kind of holding back.
Right. And now was your dad born here or are you first generation?
Yes. No, my dad was born here and he was actually the first Asian judge in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Very so always super proud of him for that. And always feel like I had big shoes to fill. My mom also an amazing educator and social worker. So huge shoes to fill.
Yeah, you guys have big hearts in your family, sounds like. I mean, it's all about service,
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about your money story, because the name of the game today.
We're getting right to it. Okay.
Getting right to it because it's the name of the show today. It's about avoiding money at all costs, which is kind of a funny play on words, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there certainly have been some deep costs. But I think everything is meant to get us where we're supposed to be. And I think I've always been aware that I've avoided money to some degree, but I think only now can I articulate it and understand to the full degree in which I avoided money. I think there hasn't been a day where money hasn't been on my mind to some degree about something. So it was really hard to understand that I was avoiding it. Right. I'm worried about it. I'm excited for it. I'm wanting it. Where is it going type of thing. So the thought that I'm avoiding it didn't really make sense to me. And then recently I was reading about, different money archetypes, the guardian, the saver. And so I took the little quiz, and it put all the pieces that I have been working on over the last couple of years all together, because it said I was like the avoider. And I was like, what? And then it said the avoider would rather have a root canal than like balance their checkbook. And I was like, well, isn't that the way everybody operates? Of course I would. But in all seriousness, that concept, I really started to reflect and look back my time as teaching, my time coaching, my time as a filmmaker, as an entrepreneur, all of that, and the ways that your mind can really play tricks on you, and you can really use your situation to avoid things. And I guess I just got comfortable doing that.
Yeah. And what specifically were you avoiding when it came to money? I mean, because everybody avoids money in different ways, or avoids dealing with money. And, and we live in a society where, especially in our culture, or your half of our culture, where it's still a very masculine driven culture where women, like my mom, knows nothing about finances. She knows absolutely nothing. So her anxiety stems from the fact that she has no idea what to expect. And now that, they've gotten a divorce and everything, she's even more anxious. And I've had to step in and kind of help educate her. So I don't enable her, but I tell her this is what needs to be done. I can help you, but just keep in mind, this is what we're doing. So, I mean, what were you avoiding on your end? I mean,
that's a good question. I think I'm piecing that together still, and it's a kind of never ending story. Let me lost my train of thought there. I definitely, it certainly wasn't, I don't think, a gender issue, at least in the stereotypical sense. I remember it was kind of always a back and forth with my parents. My mom helped my dad when he was in law school. And I kind of remember some of the end of that, not when I was born, after he was in law school, but I remember my mom like paying like the little coupons for the loan. And so they were both part of the household finances, and it was not a kind of regimented 50-50. It was an ebb and flow. But I think
the benefits of a blended household. Yes.
And I think I just saw things very rigidly. I think I I had a lot of money stories, a lot of ideas that money's evil. I think, money's the root of all evil and all those things. And I was confused by that a lot, because I love Disney World, and I knew money is what brought me to Disney World when I was a kid. So I was like, well, this is confusing to me. And I think I just operated on autopilot. I think I was scared. I think one of the things that from Chinese culture, and I think the culture of my family, I was very blessed and fortunate to live in a family that, we're always going to take care of you. We're always going to help you. My parents and grandparents are all tremendously generous in helping all my endeavors throughout my life. My dad bought me for Christmas a new bike for triathlon. So I'm very, very fortunate. So I think I kind of, I think I kind of equated that financial support with being safe. And I think if I had to sit there and face my financial situation, there was kind of a lack of safety there, right? I would rather it's I know my husband will buy me healthy food when I'm teaching, and I can
if you actually paid attention to it, you might mess up the flow. Like you're gonna might rock the boat or something like that.
Absolutely. Because do I have the ability to do this? Can I take care of myself fully? I could always take care of myself. And I never really had to face it, because I was always surrounded by people that provided experiences and support and, love of all types of. Right? Yes, exactly. And when I was,
and then when you were what?
When I was teaching, I think, I really got bought into the idea, or cultural idea, American culture idea, that kind of poverty can be noble, which
nobility and being poor. Right?
Yes, which I want to put out to the universe. I do not believe that. But I think
poor and broke and suffering. He really doesn't.
And so when I'm teaching, and everybody's kind of in the same boat, when I go out, walk down to the real world and people talked about cost of living increases and raises, I was like, what is this? These are things you don't even entertain. And when I was, it was interesting to watch as my career evolved, that when I was working as a media literacy education consultant, I'd go into different schools and work with different teachers to help them with professional development, help them teach their students the ways media influence them. Right. And one time I was going back repeatedly every few weeks with this one group of teachers. They're an amazing group of teachers. It was a great experience. And I always brought pens, and there's a box of pens from Costco's and notebooks and things if they wanted to take notes. And I walked in on the last day with this group, and I was all excited because one of the teachers said, "Oh, great, I'm so glad to see you." And I was oh, this is a good little ego boost, right? Yeah. Like, wonderful. I'm glad to see you too. He said, "I needed a pen." And I think just that scarcity in schools that we have as teachers, right? Like, I think you're just looking to survive as a teacher, both in the classroom. Goodness.
So he was more excited about the fact that you brought in a whole box of pens than you actually showing up in that moment?
Well, I think that he was, I got a sense that they enjoyed the training, but I think the point that I wanted to illustrate with that story was that there's such a scarcity in education. And I think that's my first teaching job was at Cal State Long Beach. So your neck of the woods, Go Beach. Yeah. And I absolutely loved it. My chair was an amazing mentor. The students are great. Everything. It was just a great experience, but it was really, it was always scarcity. You had a certain number of copies you could make.
There were limitations and everything like that too.
Yes. So so there was. It was just the norm.
Yeah. Does that feel like, as a teacher, that it's almost like an anchor or like a bottleneck to holding you back to serve at the highest level when you're working with kids? Have to worry about moderating the usage of resources?
Yeah, it absolutely did to an extent. Our chair was really helpful in making sure we had what we needed in the classroom. I think there were a lot of students who are also struggling financially and trying to balance on what we can assign for books. And so I think just the whole environment was one of scarcity. So it was very easy to avoid. I could meet my minimum bills, but the fact that I wasn't prospering in certain ways or could be doing more, it was just really easy to not examine.
I could only imagine then that environment for the teacher, how it trickles down to the students who are around it day in and day out. And by the time they finish school, having gone through, like years of it, what that would do to impact their mindset. And it doesn't even need to be directly, explicitly communicated. It could be something that they just feel and it just comes through.
Absolutely. Every teacher I know at every level is spending a lot of money out of their pocket for supplies. I think one of the things I love most about being an education consultant was meeting such amazing teachers. And I've always been inspired by how passionate they are and what they're willing to sacrifice for their students. It's just amazing to me. But yeah, I would imagine that students would pick up from that. I think, a lot of students have commented to me, they don't want to go into the field because of not only low salaries, but just
what they experienced.
Anything outside of it kind of looks more appealing to them, I would imagine.
Wow. So that's fascinating, because I'm so glad one of our monthly contributions is to funding, education on some level and stuff like that with UCLA and the students and stuff like that. But
that's amazing you do that.
But I didn't realize that. That this perspective. I've dated teachers and stuff like that. So this was never communicated to me. So this is actually very revealing. This is huge.
Yeah, it's, and there's some articles I can send you links to it too. And it's just really interesting. And a good friend of mine, and this is another example of where I avoided big time because I was able to meet my needs. And also with teaching, I was working a lot. So I didn't really have time to do other things. So I wasn't needing money to do other things. So it was another angle of avoiding.
Kind of like the military. Yes. You make all this money, but you're you're not fighting wars, you're not spending money.
right, exactly. So it was another way to avoid. And I was when I moved to Colorado, I was teaching at a couple of schools here, and it was a little different setup, just cost of living pay, so pay was adjusted, and there was no union. So there were some things that made me take a look at my financial situation, that it wasn't quite on par with at Long Beach. But I was driving, I was working, got at least 70 hours, if not more a week, driving from all across the state to different schools to teach. And there are positives. And a good friend of mine, really just a soul friend for sure. We had worked together in a whole lifetime ago in the budget office in state government. So with numbers at one point.
Right.
And she looked at me and she sat down and she's like, Laurie, and she's probably one of the few people I trust to go through this process with at the time. She says, we were sat down, she's like, let's look at the numbers. So she wrote the numbers down. And I remember even like, I don't even want to look. Right.
Wow. Were you that physically?
Yes, absolutely. I don't want to know what they're going to tell me. What am I going to do if I need to do something else? Am I going to be able to? Right. What is it going to say about, have I wasted all this time doing this? And so she looked, and I was actually spending money to teach. Not only for supplies in the classroom, but to drive and all that stuff. She's like, you're actually spending money to teach. And I looked at her, and I mean, I thank her every day for that. And that's pretty much when I decided to go on an entrepreneurial path. There would be some time before I kind of executed that.
Right. And, so speaking of that, how long ago was that when you had that epiphany? It's like, oh my God, because your friend pointed that out to you and you realized, the path for you to continue to do what you love, to do what you do, is to take a more entrepreneurial standpoint position for it. How long ago was that?
About 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, shortly after we moved to Colorado. I think it hit fast. And I certainly knew I wanted to. I worked with a life coach she was amazing. I've been very fortunate to have amazing teachers in my adulthood. And I knew I wanted to be involved in film. And I actually started out to do film production. And I started to sway more towards education. Media literacy had been something I incorporated into my history classrooms.
Right.
And I think
what is that? Media literacy.
Media literacy is the ability to read images, decode messages, and understand the way these visual images shape the way you think and feel. So when you're watching a television show, whether it be a commercial or a sitcom or a sketch show, anything, understanding the way the music, the way things are framed, how they're shaping your ideas or opinions about the world around you.
Oh, that's such a cool thing. I love how you said decode, because I'm all about deconstructing, reconstructing, re-engineering, because I'm an engineer. So it's cool. Now, what are the benefits of that? I mean, what are the benefits of someone being able to see through that? It's almost like disconnect from the matrix and see things for what it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's really be able to function in the world and to understand yourself, because seeing the field of media literacy is based on 8 tenets. And one of them is that seeing something in real life and seeing something on the screen, even though we might know there's a factual difference, has equal input in shaping the way we see the world. Okay. And an example I would use in the classroom when I was teaching in California, most of the students hadn't visited New York. So I would say, okay, well, how many have been to New York? And it was typically very few to none. And so I'd say, okay, for those of you who haven't, tell me what it looks like. Tell me what people you expect to see there. Tell me what attitudes are. Tell me what the energy is like. What do you expect to be on the penthouse office on Wall Street? What do you expect to see on a stoop in Brooklyn? Right. And they all had very common visual images of what's there, but also behavior, opinions about those types of people. And I said, but you've never been. Where is this coming from? And all of a sudden they would start to see how much it influences them, So
I wonder then, does your ability to decode that, can you use that same process to help people understand why they interpret money the way they, or how their perspective on money? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think it's funny coming from me, and for me to think, because my journey in money it feels like an arduous one at times. So it's funny to think that I could offer an opinion on this.
Of course, but
yeah. But I think we certainly did talk about that in our class in terms of in the classroom in terms of class, right? Because we talked about all the different nationalism, race, class, all those different categories. So I guess that could certainly filter down to money in a more practical way, like you teach.
Like if for example, someone really loves the movie Boiler Room, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Remember that movie?
Yeah.
And how the attitude is with, Ben Affleck throwing the keys, all the different things about money and an abundance of money, or the Wolf of Wall Street and stuff like that.
That's exactly what came to mind, right? Like we have that idea money is evil, the root of all evil. Well, there you go. There's some, I certainly don't want to be like him,
So your process can help people kind of detach themselves from allowing that type of influence to impact their lives, because if someone perceives money to be evil, just like when I went to Japan, it's so funny. I was doing an exercise in the room for about money anxiety and stuff like that, and having people define what money means to them, right? Mm-hmm. And there was one group, they were very proud and they're very happy. They raised their hand and they said, "We all equally believe that money is dirty."
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure you've been told that at some point. My mom would always say, "Wash your hands after you touch money. Wash your hands after you touch money." I was like, "Why?" Because money's dirty. I'm like, okay. And then if you have a high level of refinement and you don't like being dirty, right? And it blew their minds, because I said, "Do you guys like to take showers? I mean, how many of you who take showers?" Everybody raised their hand, of course, right? And I said, "Do you like being dirty?" And one person is like, "I don't mind it." And other people were like, "No," and then it says, "So if you think money is dirty and you don't like being dirty, why would you keep money around?" And they just all sat down and went, "Oh, so God."
Yeah.
I think there's something that very powerful, and just around money, but just in everything. But I love that media literacy thing, because it's such a huge piece. And I think if parents were not just teachers, but if parents were empowered with that knowledge and the ability to kind of like help establish the constructs and the boundaries of what their kids, understand about what they see, and to challenge it versus just taking it in, right?
Absolutely. And I think media literacy and that's one of the things. There's a bit of sadness moving on. I mean, back to filmmaking. That's what I think I was meant to do. That's what my soul's calling me to do. So there's certainly no regrets about taking that path, but it's a sadness, because I really do believe in media literacy, and the work that I've been able to do with teachers has been tremendously rewarding. But absolutely, I think those skills, and one of the things I did with a group of teachers, we'd look at commercials and just kind of, and sometimes when you look at them in a classroom, we're looking for the larger language that we use, the same types of shots over and over. And so you see them over and over, they start to mean things. But if you look at a lot of car commercials, and you watch them in a classroom setting, they're ridiculous. There's one where they just take a match and they slowly follow the match and it lights, and then a car zooms in. And, from a narrative standpoint, that makes no sense. But what ideas are they associating with cars and wealth? And, and the students would have we would just say the name of the car, the name and model of the car. And we talk about what expectations they thought they were going to see in the commercial, right? So, a Subaru Outback versus a Kia, right? Versus, an Acura or a Volvo or whatnot. They had different expectations of what type of people were going to be in there, what types of images that they were going to see. So in terms of your question about money, I think there's one right there. They all, regardless of these students, what their money stories were, they all shared this common perception of, who drives a Subaru, who drives a Kia, who drives a Cadillac.
Which in a way will then preemptively cubbyhole them if they think they have a self-perception that this is what kind of person I am.
Absolutely.
And it limits their ability to say, well, then I can't drive a Bentley.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they start shaping on an unconscious, from a behavioral standpoint. So I'm fascinated. What motivated you to kind of go into this space to kind of like expand as media? Is it something that you experienced as a child growing up that drove you to kind of be motivated to explore this, to decode this? Or what was it that got you into that?
Yeah, I think really what made me really want to activate empathy with visual images, because I think that's really the core of what it's been about. It was in 1994. I'm dating myself here, Wei.
You dating both of us. I'm like going, 1994.
Yeah. I was in high school, and the movie Philadelphia came out.
You made me older. I mean, you were in high school. I was done with it already. Anyway, go on.
So the movie Philadelphia came out with Tom Hanks, and I saw it several times with any of my friends that would be willing to see it with me.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
And I sat there in the movie theater, and I was blown away. I think I realized the power of the visual image. There were some really intense scenes where they did things with lighting and whatnot. And I couldn't speak to the language of that at the time, but I was like, wow, this is really tremendously powerful.
Right.
And these are just visual images. And it moved something in me. Like I really felt empathy. I think as a teenager, sometimes maybe those feelings aren't always so familiar.
Right.
So it really awoke a part of me. And I think one of the things I remember feeling in that movie theater the first time I saw that was a responsibility to use media for social good.
Wow.
And that's looked differently over the course of my life, you know,
right.
in the classroom and making film. But I think it was that experience. I can point to, that single experience.
Wow. That's powerful. I mean, I almost feel like you and I should talk offline about creating a movie to help people eliminate money anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, with your understanding of that and the abundance of content out there that can do all that, then, you know, that can definitely be something that would work, I think. I mean, a little short film. I mean, not like
awareness videos. You know, that's not awareness videos. You know, PSAs, those types of things. Those have had, and those younger than us on here might not remember the reference, but you remember that egg commercial. This is your brain on drugs. 12 seconds, right? 12, 15
That's
seconds.
All it takes. That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, I don't want my eggs to be my brain.
Yeah.
We have a comment here from one of our listeners, Gabby. She goes, I wish I could avoid paying bills and keep all the money.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, right?
Yeah, that's on one side. That's actually a function of slight money anxiety when you're not looking at the whole picture. You're just wanting part of it.
Yeah. No, and I think I've done that, Gabby, too. And I don't know specifically, this is what she was referring to, but I will hang on to money, or in the past, I should say, I've hung on to money in my bank. So like, you know, I used to pay my Discover card at the Costa Mesa Sears. And I had the money in my bank. I had the bill on my desk with a stamp on it ready to mail in, but I was like, I don't want to let go of that money. So finally what I had to do is right before Sears closed on the final day, I'm driving to Costa Mesa to pay that bill, you know? And so I think, you know, holding on to money, there's some sense of security there. It's all a false security, and it's kind of insane to think back to that behavior.
No, it's so interesting because it'd be fascinating because of what you do to kind of explore where did all that come from? Because when we overspend, that's a function of money anxiety. When we hoard or hold on to it too much, that's also a function of money anxiety. So it's
absolutely
interesting. Yeah,
it's so easy to rationalize, right? You know,
because our culture helps us rationalize it. Depending on who we talk to, we can go out there and find somebody to support any money belief that we have.
Absolutely.
Or a movie or a commercial in your case, right?
Absolutely. Because you're just trying to quelch the anxiety. So you're like, okay, just tell me it's okay, somebody.
Exactly.
You know, and I used to use, I'm in my 20s. So when I'm driving to Costa Mesa and I'm 23, I'm like, I'm in my 20s. I'm supposed to do crazy things. Or, you know, I'm teaching, you know, this is how teachers make it. And
right. There's nobility in being poor. It's okay.
Yeah. This is how, you know, well, if I had money, I'd be a jerk, like a Wolf of Wall Street. Leonardo DiCaprio's character, which, you know, we seriously don't want that. So I'll be nobly poor.
Yeah. So where did that come from? Because most of what we learn is between the age of 0 to 7. So going back to your money story, you know, I noticed you mentioned like, you know, money is evil growing up, thinking about that. And I know you're a Catholic. Okay. So there's oftentimes, depending on who's preaching in church, there oftentimes is a misinterpretation of the scriptures sometimes.
Absolutely.
May not necessarily be, because we forget, right? I had a client that was totally bent out of shape because he had to give his last dollar, and he had a child that needed a lot of financial support for his health. And he had spent his last dollar to tithe because he felt that was the thing to do at church. And then he was in tears. He came into a session. He goes, I don't know what to do. And I said, let me tell you something. Do you think God wants you to be poor and broke and have your child suffer? No. Okay. If you can't tithe 1 week, that's okay. That's totally fine. But if you're part of a congregation that makes you feel bad for not being able to do so, then you have to understand something, that before the Bible was written, somebody had to translate it.
Right. Exactly. With
every iteration of it wasn't the same person from before. In fact, it wasn't God that actually wrote it. Somebody translated that, a human being, right? And if we ever played the telephone game, remember that?
Absolutely.
What happens by the time just 10 people away?
I was always amazed by that. You're like, okay, and you know what's going to happen, so purposely say the same thing, right? And still, no matter what.
Still, yeah, I know. Yeah. And I'm so tempted to play that again because I haven't played it in years as an adult, just to see if anything has changed. Has man evolved enough so that we can continue for what they are? But maybe not.
Yeah.
So where do you think that you picked up the bulk of those types of beliefs that money is evil, that money is bad and everything like that? And if we were to go back between the ages of 0 and 7, which is kind of where our most impressionable, non-filtered sponge days of our lives, I mean, do you think it was from your parents? Do you think it was from religion? Where do you think it came from?
I think a little bit of everything. That's my politician response, but
very diplomatic.
Yeah, that was a little bit of everything. But I've been thinking about this, and I think it's one of the hardest nuts to crack in my money story for me, because I can think of a lot of little things, but what's kind of really meaningful. I was, as you pointed out, raised Catholic. And Catholicism was very helpful and important and meaningful to my mom and her family. For me, I pretty much had the stereotypical experience, just guilt-ridden, get me out of here. And certainly I see its value for those. But I think for me, certainly there were conversations about money and tithing in church. And I think the religion separated me from myself, disconnected, because I was thinking critically, and I think a lot of organized religion doesn't. And I was like, well, I'm younger. Right. I must be wrong. And so I think there was a point where I was like hanging on to my reality and kind of lost it. And so I think I became ungrounded in life in general. And I think that translated to money. Right. But I think the biggest thing that I mean, I've heard, it's noble to be poor and those types of things. But I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm a very visual person, and I think it's a theme that's gone throughout much of my life, well into my early adulthood, is I am from a working class town, which I'm very proud to be from. Is a great place to be, great people, great spirit, a town about a half hour outside Boston, an amazing town. But it was a very working class town, that might say was a euphemism. A lot of gang activity, a lot of violence, a lot of tremendously extreme poverty. You have middle class people there as well. Right. So I think I always felt very conflicted. I came from a middle class family. A lot of my friends were middle class. A lot of my friends weren't middle class. But visually around me every day, it's just etched in my mind, just driving, ironically, from our house to church is no more than 2 miles away. And you're seeing like triple decker houses with people just clearly, looks like a third world actually. And they're sitting there. And so I think very young, that was your reality. That was my reality. Even though it wasn't my reality in my home, that was the world I saw. And it's not like you're just seeing people dressed in kind of ripped clothes. You see the lack of hope. You see the lack of mobility, the
despair, and everything like that. That just
absolutely.
So how do you explain? Because there's a lot of people who like they grow up in the projects and everything like that, and there's some people who make it out. They get out of the. Not that I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the projects. I mean, they serve a purpose on some level, but they make it out of the projects. They create a better life for themselves, different from what they ever grew up with. And there are those who don't. I mean, just like you were able to kind of move, and I'm sure you still have friends who are still there. And what would you say is the difference between those that are able to kind of break away from those types of circumstances versus those that just kind of give up and give in, just stay there?
That's a good question. I think probably having a strong awareness of yourself. I think for me, I struggled in early adulthood because I lived in kind of the downtown LA area for a while. So I was seeing more of the same. Right.
So you brought yourself and said, well, this feels comfortable. I'll just
yeah. And it was a street where they had these buildings with no windows, and it was just 2 shifts, 2 12-hour shifts, credit card factories, clothing factories. And And I think for me, I went too academic, and I really, and everything as we've discussed before, everything I'm reading, you need some dimension of spirituality and awareness of yourself. And I went too in my head and too academic. And so, I'm teaching cultural history, and, we're teaching industrialization, and we're talking to students about, yes, anyone can come here and anyone can move up, but not everybody can. Because if ever, that's just not the way capitalism works. There has to be people throughout the whole system. And I think I took that to heart. And I just think in my life circumstances, everything I saw meant that, hey, I was down here. I can't achieve.
It's like you created a class system for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Almost a caste system, because even though I see mobility in there, I just felt like there was no mobility for me. There was the upper ceiling, and that ceiling was low.
Right. Right. So it's fascinating, because we're supposedly living in a country that supports freedom, and yet something in the culture still, on some level, to some people, there's an interpretation that you can't move away. You're just going to be on scripts and what do you call food stamps for life type of thing. Right? Wow, that's an interesting. So when that shift happened, okay, where do you think the shift happened for you when it came to money? Was it when you decided to become an entrepreneur, or after you kind of explored the entrepreneurship that you had to face the whole money piece?
I think, again, a little of both. I think the one thing I realized, I think I was meant to be an entrepreneur, both from, kind of behavior standpoint. I can't stand corporate structures and all the condescension and all that. And I want my vision. I want to see my vision. However, for whatever reason, that's important to me. I think I came late in life to realize that was a path. Both of my parents at one point worked for themselves. So I saw that and grew up with that and saw that freedom, but I just didn't.
Oh, you didn't correlate that to entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
You just said that's what dad was doing. That's what mom was doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I kind of had this desire for it. And once I realized it could happen, but I think a key piece that was missing that let me keep my money story going during the time I was an entrepreneur, the key piece really was the fact that I had come from such an industry, a profession that was so low paying. What really hit me was my friend when we did the numbers. And then shortly thereafter, I read an article with, talking about adjunct professors and things like that. And I realized I was below the poverty level with the pay I was making for teaching. Wow. And I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week. And
how does that even make sense? How is that even possible?
Yeah, it's insane. And I was like, wow. So I think one of the things that, oddly, ironically, or whatever the word is, that really helped me keep my money story going as an entrepreneur, because a lot of entrepreneurs are fueled by, I have to make my money now, right? Like, oh my God, it is on me. Right. And for me, I got one program from a school, and that was more than I made teaching. So I didn't have that fire, right? It was almost a relief.
Right. It's like, this is the best decision ever. And
yeah. And so I think, I was always busy doing something, but I wasn't necessarily needing to, or knowing that I should, let's move forward. Because kind of coasting was
the passion fire that entrepreneurs need to solve problems in a bigger way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was like, well, okay, I'm making more than I did teaching. And so I think that really allowed me to keep that money story going, allowed me to avoid it, allowed me to, yeah.
So over the last 9 years, you've been fine-tuning your mission. You've been fine-tuning your purpose, if you will. And I think very recently you realized that you in a way almost separate a little bit too much from your passion, what brought you into, the media literacy to begin with. So share a little bit about now as an entrepreneur, what is it that you do now that is not letting go of everything that you did before, but fine tuning that process so that now you're even more focused on your path or what you're here to do.
Yeah. I was really surprised at how much is coming together, because it felt like I was really moving away from something and into a new path. But I really realized everything that I taught and learned in all those years, I'm using it every day. So whether I'm writing a script for a client, or whether I'm editing for a client, or whether I'm creating, I'm creating an awareness series about domestic violence, and everything I'm doing is very informed by not only the knowledge of media literacy, and those skills, okay, it'll be better to show this than that to make this point, or what, I don't want to show people in this way, I want to show them in this way.
Right.
But I think everything I've learned about how people interpret images. So when I've worked with, hundreds and thousands of, maybe thousands of students and teachers over the years. And I know the way that they interpret information. And so it's just coming so naturally as I start to edit, and put these images together and select the stories to tell.
Yeah. And I feel like in case you haven't, this might be an idea that'll kind of catapult your business to the next level. Because I feel like every marketing company that creates content from a video standpoint could use your process or use your understanding of media literacy. Because I think, even companies like, say, even the big brands like Coca-Cola and everything says, are you truly communicating what you want to communicate to your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody with media literacy skills, really benefits. When I had filmmakers come into my media literacy workshops, they were aware of a lot of the terminology and a lot of the visual skills, but they were also still amazed at what those ideas are conveying, because they're approaching it from a much more technical standpoint. So I think it is a benefit to sort of marry those skills.
Right. So if there's an entrepreneur, for example, that or a business that they create videos on a regular basis to kind of communicate with their audience, if they were to come to you and say, hey, can you do an analysis on what we're putting out there, and can you help us come up with a process or a strategy that more effectively communicates our brand, or more effectively communicates what we want to communicate to our audience? Is that something that you could help people with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, one is fine-tuning what is your message, and really looking at the visual images you have, whether they're still or moving, and are they conveying that? What are you seeing? What are what is your audience seeing? Because a lot of times the images we put there it's not what we see.
And are you doing that now? Is that part of your services now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's inherent in every video that I'm doing. For instance, I put together a speaker reel for a woman who's a speaker here, an amazing communication speaker here. And, we worked together about, what image they wanted to convey, about what she does.
I might need to have you do my speaker reel.
Sounds great. And little things like that. And so I was very cognizant of, when we showed clips of her working with people, a lot of what they were saying underneath is how she supports them, which she does. So I would make sure we would end on an image where we see the person she's supporting speaking versus her speaking. So that conveys the fact that she is supporting them. Whereas if we cut it where she's talking to the person, so it's just being really, and I guess I think I just always been hyper aware of images.
Yeah, I can't. You know what? I can't help myself, but I think I need to make an introduction for you after we're done. Remind me if you could. Graphic designer, brand developers, everybody needs what it is that you provide. And anyway, we're actually getting off topic, because I'm getting more excited about what you're doing now as an entrepreneur. But I think there's something to be said about that. Do you think what the reason why you avoided kind of really stepping fully into this was that there maybe had been a part of you that didn't think that you could monetize, this as a business? And you
absolutely didn't think I could do it. Didn't think I could monetize it. Didn't know how to monetize it. I find that certain things I'll just, like triathlon, I'll just go. I'll just go forward and go.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You are a triathlete, right?
Yes, I am proud to say I am. I returned to the sport after about 8 years off. So it's my third season back, and I'm just so grateful to it. It's just been such a great part of my life.
That's so cool. And I think that contributes a lot to your ability to just get it done.
Absolutely. And I've been trying to learn that, because I'll just do it. And then other areas of my life, I'll just stop dead in my tracks. So it has been kind of a healing metaphor as well as, a fun sport.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. So, where did you then, how am I going to say this? At what point did you realize that, I can monetize doing what it is that I'm doing? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. It's like, despite me saying that, hey, if a guy can take rocks out of his garden and make millions of dollars selling rocks as a pet,
right.
Why can't you monetize what it is that you're doing for, what you love doing, and especially in this day and age where technology makes things so easy, what would you say to people who are still stuck in that point where you used to be saying, I can't make money doing that? I mean, how did you traverse that, chasm?
I don't know if my advice is going to be relevant or helpful in this, because I feel like it's going down a different path than what an expected answer might be.
We're looking for the unexpected. The expected answer is what everybody else gets, and they can Google it, right?
For me, I think it was money had been such a preoccupation. First, worrying about it, but avoiding it. Second, trying to figure this out. That I think I just forgot about it. And just started moving in the direction that I felt I needed to go, and just kind of reconnect with my intuition. And I've been very fortunate. My husband, Joel, is tremendously supportive in everything I do, from, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take out our dog on triathlon days to, to, making sure I didn't starve when I was teaching, to, providing the best healthcare for our pets. He has been so supportive. And I think that gave me the ability to say, okay, let's go forward and do this. So I think forgetting about money, not forgetting about it, but taking the emotion out of it. Okay, like, let's balance your checkbook. Let's do all these things you're afraid of, but let's let's take one step towards. And like I was telling you, it was 8 days after I decided to do this. Right. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know if I had told my husband. I don't know if I told anyone. Really, at this point, I was hired to edit a movie on running. And that's really what I want to do is edit movies and make movies and all these different things. So, if I had tried I couldn't have made that path. I couldn't have said, okay, like drawn the line from where I was to that path. I could have tried, but I said, okay, like every day, let's just take another step. And then it just started working out, and opportunities of all kinds started to go, and still in the middle of it, still learning, still don't avoid.
and I've been watching you in that journey of bringing more money and opening up your prosperity channels. And it's, and what you're bringing to light is really kind of the important thing that people need to understand, is that, when we're talking about the forms of energy, whether it's drinking coffee or like, or just going outside and having a workout to bring more energy into your being, stuff like that, money is just another form of energy as well. And so when we have an energetic charge, like which is what an emotion is, right? It's an energetic nuclear force driven charge around it. That's another form of energy. And if it conflicts with the energy of money that you're trying to bring into your world, it'll actually push it away. So I think it's a really cool awareness piece that is like, if it's not forgetting about money, but just taking the emotional charge out of it, taking the anxiety out of it, and then money will actually find its way in. Kind of like rain on a roof with full of holes. It'll find a way in.
Right. Absolutely. And it's just, I get wrapped up all the time, but I just say, okay, just another step today, put aside. And
that's so cool that you surrounded yourself with such a great support system, and so many different resources. Now, I'm sure there's people out there who'll say, oh, you know what? I'm not married, or I don't have that kind of support. And they may potentially even use that as a reason to say, well, I mean, that's great for her, but that's not my life. What do you say to kind of help people understand that, or maybe even talk about how you proactively created a support system that worked for you? Because everybody's different, of course. I'm like, I'm not married, but but I'm not sitting there going, well, I don't have a wife, so I'm not going to do anything.
I every now and then I stand up and I look around, and I'm surrounded by amazing people, amazing teachers just keep showing up, coaches, everything keeps showing up in my life, friends, family. I don't know how I did it, but thank God I did. And it's not, just about financial support. I always, over the years have appreciated financial support from family and whatnot, and don't want to diminish that. But I feel like I have received so much emotional support and out there. And I think it's at times I don't necessarily have the money to give, or in the past, I don't like, in charities and things like, oh, I wish I had this money. I might have the money, but I can drive you up a box of food. I feel like, and with my husband and I think we're similar in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways, but we kind of we mesh. And so there's a lot I contribute to, support, and over the years too, both of us in different ways. And I think it's a constant journey. And so I think it's easy to say, oh, I had friends, which I had say, oh, well, they did it because they came from money, or they came from this money. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's kind of, so then you don't do anything because they came from money. Like, it didn't make sense. And, it doesn't mean that they're happy or that's what they want to do. And, so I had a lot of that negative energy in my life, and I've kind of gotten that out, just away from those groups of people. So just kind of
eliminating those types of influence and start to proactively surround yourself with the people that can contribute. Right.
Absolutely. So I guess it has been a conscious thing as the last couple of years, but up until that point, I think I was lucky, just to have such amazing, friends and
well,
family.
I think it also it's a reflection of what you've been wanting to do, in terms of media literacy and everything like that path, that commitment, and, when someone makes that level of commitment of service and wanting to do what it is that you do, it's almost as if like the universe and God and nature, it just kind of says, well, okay, great. Here's some support tools for you. Should you be open to receive it? And and it sounds like you were open to receive it, and you if you hadn't said yes to receiving it, then you may not have gotten that much support.
Absolutely. And I think I'm more and more learning down that path. Getting out of the way of myself is probably the best way to say it. Yeah.
Getting out of your own way. It's always.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we're the biggest roadblocks to ourselves, right?
Absolutely. So just being open to the new ideas, the new people, the new influences, the new opportunities out there.
Yeah. So guess what? We're almost at the top of the hour, believe it or not. Holy cow.
Wow,
it's always fast. Like this, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that, because you have such a very valuable offering, a powerful service to help both entrepreneurs of all lengths, from startups all the way to Fortune 100 companies, because it's such a unique approach that you have. I think that's your biggest distinction between just another filmmaker, another videographer, because of your understanding of media literacy, which is a really powerful thing. How do people connect with you, or how do they reach out to you to kind of learn more, get in a conversation with you, or maybe even use your services?
My production company is Middle Infield Films. And so I have a temporary website where we're building a website up there. So it's middleinfieldfilms.com. And so email and phone number are on there. The Facebook page, Middle Infield Films.
So what's the best way? Is it the best way through Facebook, or the best way through just email and call you directly?
Email and call will probably be the best.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So what I'll probably do is I'll go to your website and I'll pull that information. I'll post it in the comments, and that way you have to go all over the place. And I'll put your URL too. Okay?
Appreciate that. Thanks, Lloyd.
Yeah. So very cool. So Middle Infield, I have to ask, where did that come?
I guess that could be a whole other topic of conversation. I really wanted something. I sat on it, and I didn't brainstorm names. I said, okay, I wanted something meaningful. And I played baseball on the boys team in the wake of Title IX. So long time ago. And I know it's funny, people who meet me after college, they're like, or people who knew me college or before are surprised that I'm like not a baseball fan at all. I don't care about it. I don't play, it's just, and so it's funny because I was very, very passionate and very, very focused on playing baseball, for better or for worse. And so it came to me, I played second base. A shortstop is really known to be the best, the most athletic, probably most skilled person on the team, in my opinion. Right. But I felt there's a lot of stories around that I'm telling through short films and things like that. But my life view was shaped in the middle infield. And so everything that I do going forward is going to be informed by that in one way or another. It's not going to be necessarily about baseball, but it has been informed. So I figured my production studio, this is my voice, just one of many voices out there. And I think so.
Are you going to put that in a video and explain it so people know, to tell the story behind Middle Infield?
I've gone back and forth about that.
I think it'd be a great video.
Really? Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah. So I figure this is where my perspective is from. So be as straightforward. That's what people
like and want. They want to see the humanity, the human being behind the brand. That's why social media is a kind of, this better than I'm preaching to the choir. Media has basically pushed people that we don't want just like a brand. They want to know what who the people are behind the brand per se, right?
Yeah.
So okay, great. So you've been able to overcome that avoid. For people out there, other entrepreneurs that are struggling with that whole concept of avoiding money, it's just kind of like a head in the ground ostrich, type of approach to dealing with money, which I've gone through as well. What would you say, if there's one thing that they can do to give that shift, to kind of pull their head out of the sand, what would you say would be a step in the right direction to start being able to resolve that piece, to fix that part of their anxiety around money?
For me, it was getting really honest with myself. A lot of the things I've been listening to and reading lately, they say you have to hit a sort of rock bottom. And I certainly would agree with that. But our rock bottoms can keep going. Right. But I think whatever rock bottom makes you be honest with yourself. And really, I think that's like really truly honest with yourself, where you truly look at, this is my life, this is where I want to go. And we can talk about it philosophically all we want, but there's a practical thing of you need to get here to here.
Yeah. So hopefully they don't go to rock bottom and they just start doing it right away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And someone's rock bottom might not be that bad,
Yeah, exactly. It's all relative. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was just telling you before we started, I created a new video about getting real with money. And so it's like a perfect way. And then we start with that now in the program. So it's
nice.
Such a cool thing. So yeah, I think that's great advice. I absolutely support that, because really most people don't. They just, kind of avoid the whole thing, and kind of what you went through about 9 years ago. It's like, this is the truth. This is really what's going on. You're paying to work. Work yourself like a dog and work yourself to the bone. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's such a powerful message that you had, and such an amazing thing that you do. I wanted to make sure that the world can actually hear about that, and also your journey in the process, because it's such an inspiration to be able to see anytime when anybody is taking one or a few symptoms of money, and being able to kind of bring yourself out of that. And then from the circumstances that you grew up with, and moving into a much bigger arena to make such a bigger difference on the world, and how you got motivated to do that. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Wei. Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do, and for your help in my money story.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. So I have a sneaking suspicion that as you continue to grow, we probably will just have you back again at the next big leap in your journey doing what it is. And I have a sneaking suspicion we'll probably be doing other work together anyway, because of what you do. So
well, I look forward to it, Wei. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. So that's our show for this week. Again, if you found this episode to be valuable and know of someone else that could benefit from what we talked about today, share it. Review us on iTunes, Spreaker, or like the episode on Google Live. And did you know we even have a Facebook group called The Money Lab? Join us there to dive even deeper and into the bad money story, and talk about elimination strategies. Okay. So that's basically a wrap. Take this week to apply the knowledge from today, from what Laurie talked about. Have an amazing week. And we'll catch you next week on the Money Lab Live podcast, where we will have the entire team from the Lumen Wealth Group to talk about wealth, health, and happiness. This is Wei from the Six Figure Academy, and Laurie signing off. Okay, now that we're done with the Spreaker thing, we can say goodbye to the people on YouTube land. Say bye. See you, everybody. Thank you so much. Join us next week, and you don't want to miss it, because it's going to be a big party here. There's going to be a lot of people. So we'll see you then. Thanks again, Laurie.
Thank you, Wei.